Should you buy big speakers or should you buy little ones? Floorstanding speakers or Floorstanders differ from their bookshelf compadres in a few ways. For one, instead of sitting them on stands or shelves, they sit on the floor. They're a lot bigger and a lot more expensive, so why on earth should you buy them? Floorstanders offer a few advantages over bookshelf speakers, one of them being they have much greater depth and bass extension. That means they'll pump out noise at low frequencies, and when they do, there'll be a chunk more of it. They can also offer the listener a greater sense of weight by pushing more air. It's what we call sound pressure levels, or SPLs. If you've ever been to a gig or even the cinema and you've been hit in the chest by the sound of a kick drum or an explosion, that's sound pressure. And it can add a certain power and intensity to your listening experience. Floorstanders can also have a much wider soundstage than bookshelf speakers. It can give the impression that the music is filling out the entire room rather than just kind of coming from in the middle somewhere. Floorstanders do, however, come with a few caveats. They take up a lot more space, both physical, so in your room you're going to need more space just to have them there, and all that extra bass means that they can drown a small room, they can drown the listener in too much bass, and they can sound like your subwoofer is punching your face off and punching you to the wall. In that sense, it can be better to have less good quality bass rather than have too much muddy rubbish that just spoils the entire listening experience. The other caveat with Floorstanders is that all those extra drivers and the larger cabinet size that attribute to it to its advantage also make it a lot more expensive to design and build effectively. More drivers means that a more advanced crossover is needed to be designed into the speakers. Basically, a crossover takes a signal and splits the different frequency bands up and sends them to the appropriate speaker or driver. Perhaps more significantly, larger speaker cabinets cause unwanted resonance and can colorise the sound in a really negative way, so designing effective ones is actually quite difficult. So you've got £500 to spend on a pair of new speakers. If you were to put that money towards a particular brand's floor-standing speakers, that would most likely get you one of their tier 1 level speakers. Let's say, just like these speakers I've got behind me, the Monitor Audio BX5s. They're awesome speakers and they cost about £500 to £550. But what about instead if you spend that £500 on a pair of bookshelf speakers? Well, £500 would get you a pair of Monitor Audio Silver 1 speakers. You'd be jumping up into their tier 2 range of speakers. So then, what are you getting buying a pair of tier 2 speakers that you're not getting buying their entry-level models? Well, owing to superior quality drivers and overall better design, you're often going to end up with quite a few different advantages. One of them is you'll often get a much more precise and accurate soundstage. So while Floorstanders might sound a lot bigger, the sound that you'll get from a pair of bookshelf speakers will sound more accurate. So the placement will be more precise and the separation between the instruments should be more convincing and believable. More sound stage. What you'll definitely get is a chunk more detail, so you'll really hear every little nuance, every little movement on the fretboard, every little flutter of an oboe, every little shreddy little whittle on maybe Van Halen solo, I don't know. Detail, you get more of that. More capable drivers as well, should be a bit more agile, so rather than the low end turning into kind of a rumbly, massive, mushy nothingness, it should be a lot more precise. You should be able to hear each individual kick drum or each individual note more accurately and should give overall a much better listening experience. If you want to get the most out of them, you do need to use stands. Bookshelf speakers is a little bit of a misnomer because while you can stick them on a shelf, they're never going to sound as good as they should do in that situation. Obviously you need to factor that into the price when you're buying bookshelf speakers as well. You might need to spend £50, £100, £150 on a pair of proper stands, so the gap between your bookshelf speakers and your Floorstanders in terms of price kind of narrows slightly. So after all that, why do I own these huge, hulking, expensive Floorstander speakers? Well, it basically just comes down to personal preference. I like a bit of drama in my music. I'm willing to forgo the top end of detail and pay a little bit more to have that extra punch and kick and the massive soundstage that envelops you, particularly with music like metal or with soundtracks from films or video games. Though I do have to kind of admit that these Floorstanders are probably way too big for this room, for this tiny little room. You can kind of get a little bit over dramas at times. There you have it. Should you spend more on big old Floorstanders or should you keep it less expensive and get some good value bookshelf speakers? I don't know, it's personal preference. You can get a lot more value from bookshelf speakers, but if you need that extra bit of something, je ne sais quoi, then Floorstanders might be the way to go. I hope you've enjoyed another video from me, the AudioLlama. If you have, then give me a subscribe down below, give me a like, all that. If you jump on my Facebook, add me on there, jump on the Twitter, add me on there, just to keep up with everything, and that'll make me feel like you like me. If you've got any questions or anything, put them in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.